Hello and welcome to my video all about how to knit lace picot selvedges. Picots are basically like scallops but more pointed, and these are lace picots because we'll be adding a yarn over eyelet or hole in the centre of each one. It's a pretty simple pattern to knit and we'll be doing it in garter stitch, which is where you knit every row. If you prefer, you can do just the picot side edges in garter stitch and then do a completely different stitch in between. So for instance, you could do garter stitch for the first 4 and last 4 stitches on each row, and then do something like stockinette stitch in between. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is cast on your stitches. The number of stitches can be any number above 7. I personally cast on 20 stitches. You can use your favourite cast on method. I just used the long tail cast on. Row 1 is very simple because it's just knit stitches all the way across. Then row 2 is the same, so you just do another knit row. Then for row 3, you begin with knit stitches again, but this time you stop when you've got 4 stitches remaining. Once you have 4 stitches remaining, you need to do a K2 tog. K2 tog stands for knit 2 together and it's a single decrease. To do this, take your right hand needle up through the next 2 stitches and then do the steps of a normal knit stitch. So you're turning 2 stitches into 1. You then need to do the yarn over, which will create the eyelet or hole in the final pattern. So to do this, bring the working yarn between the needles to the front. You then need to do 2 KFBs. KFB stands for knit into the front and the back, and it's a single increase. So do all the normal steps of a knit stitch, except at the end you don't push a stitch off the end of the needle. Instead, you take your right hand needle point around to the back, take it down through the back of that same stitch, and then complete it as you would a normal knit stitch. And this makes 1 stitch into 2. And then we do 1 more KFB. So knit into the front of the stitch and then into the back. So on this row we've increased by 2 stitches overall. And then row 4 is exactly the same as row 3. So do knit stitches until you've only got 4 stitches left. Then do a K2 tog by knitting 2 stitches together. Then do a yarn over. And finish with 2 KFBs. So knit into the front and the back of the next stitch. And then knit into the front and the back of the last stitch as well. And then for row 5, we begin by slipping a stitch knitwise. So make sure the working yarn is at the back behind the needles. Then take the right hand needle up through the next stitch as if to knit, but instead of knitting it, you just slip it off the end of the needle. You then knit a stitch and use your left hand needle to pick up the first stitch which you slipped, take it over the knit stitch and off the end of the needle. Then knit 1 stitch and bind off 1. So again, use your left hand needle to pick up that second stitch down, take it over the stitch above and off the end of the needle. Then you just need to do knit stitches until the end of the row. And then row 6, which is the last row in the pattern repeat, is the same as row number 5. So slip a stitch knitwise, making sure that the working yarn is at the back. Knit 1, pass the slip stitch over, then knit another stitch, and then bind off 1. Then just knit until the end of the row. And that's the 6 row pattern repeat completed. Your knitting should now look something like this. I then knitted this pattern twice more, and this was the result. You can see that each side has slightly pointed picots and also yarn over eyelets. And just so you can see what it looks like, I also knit this pattern in super bulky yarn. And that's it, that's how you knit lace picot edging. I really hope you found this tutorial useful, and thank you very much for watching.